Welcome alle sammen. This is the series that I'm continuing on the 6 gifts that the gods receive from the dwarves after the creation of the universe. So the 3 gifts that they received from the dwarves at the same time, one is Mjolnir and the other is Draupnir, which I've done 2 videos on. And now is Gullinbursti, the final one, the pig with golden bristles that was given to Freyr. So as usual, to determine the true meaning behind this, we look at the translation, attestations, and theories to get the real meaning of what this little piggy symbolizes. So first, the translation, Gullinbursti, golden bristles. Pretty simple. A lot of these translations in Old Norse are difficult to determine and many possibilities, but Gullinbursti is easy. But I'll make a note that Gullinbursti is sometimes referred to as slidrugtanni, meaning dangerous or harmful tooth. So these are both metaphors, which I will go over the true meaning of in a minute. But on to the attestations. So we find Gullinbursti a few times in the Old Eddas. We find it in the Prose Edda Skaldskaparmal section. And this is the story of how the dwarves made Gullinbursti and how this pig could run through air and water better than any horse, and it lit up, and it was never so dark and gloomy. Even the murkiest regions, there was not any lack of light where it went. So very interesting. I will speak about what that means in just a minute, but another attestation of Gullinbursti comes in the Prose Edda Gilfangning section. And this is where Snorri tells us about Baldur's funeral and how Freyr rode a chariot pulled by Gullinbursti there. Then we have the same story in a skaldic poem called Husdropa. And here, it also tells about Baldur's funeral, but here Freyr doesn't ride the boar with a chariot, he rides the boar just sitting on the boar by itself. So this is a perfect example of what I speak about a lot. It's about the reliability differences between the Old Norse sources. So skaldic poems are regarded as the most reliable of all the sources we have because these were written by pagans in pagan times for pagans. The Prose Edda was written by Snorri, a Christian, almost 200 years after pagan times, so it's not super reliable. The general picture of the myths that come from the Prose Edda is the same most of the time, but there are clearly lots of missing or altered details from the original myths that were told in pagan times. So this story about Freyr riding Gullinbursti is a well-documented example, but there are hundreds of examples like this with incorrect details from the original myths. So yes, we should all read the Prose Edda and learn from it, but we can't get caught up in the small details trying to make it fit with the theories. What's important is the main plot of the myth, not the small details created in the Prose Edda. Anyway, on to the theories. There are none about Gullinbursti that I have read, so what I'm about to say is just my theory, building on some actual well-documented theories of all the other items that the gods received at the same time here. But yeah, these are just theories, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. I'm probably not right about this, and that's why I make these videos. It's so we can get all of our good minds in our religion thinking about these things and coming up with theories instead of only 5 or 10 people in the world that are currently writing about it. So just let me know what you think, but here I'm going to speak about what it seems pretty obvious that it is. So the 6 items that the gods get from the dwarves at this time. They're all believed to have to do with our birth and the formation of our soul. I just did 2 videos on Mjolnir, which we think represents the heart or heartbeat. Then we have Draupnir, the soul ring that forms the 8 different parts of our soul. And what is missing from our human formation there? Well, the body. We have a heartbeat, and then we have the soul that gives us life. The only missing thing is the body, or the fetus. What does a fetus look like? Well, a little piggy with golden bristles, just like we come out with little golden blonde peach fuzz. Hold on. That doesn't sound quite right. All babies don't have blonde hair. Well, let me tell you, Scandinavians do. Especially back in the Viking Age when there was much less migration and mixing. Yes, of course, we have stories of dark-haired Vikings, but even Scandinavians with the darkest hair are always bright blonde when they were babies. Even me, if you look at photos of me, and as I've gotten older, especially in the winter, my hair gets a bit dark. But look at baby pictures of me or anyone else who has mostly Germanic ancestry, they're going to be blonde every single time. What is another name for Gullinbursti? Slidrugtanni, dangerous or harmful tooth. So this is a metaphor, or kenning as they would call it for sure. Exactly what it is, we don't know, but my thoughts on it is that the fetus or baby is exactly like a harmful or dangerous tooth. And that's the fact that it needs to be pulled out. You know, they didn't have dentists and cavities and fillings back then. If a tooth was hurting, they had to pull it out, just like a baby needed to come out. We didn't have C-sections back then either. You know, if the baby didn't come out of the mother, it was going to die. So I think this is a really fitting metaphor, actually. A dangerous tooth, what a fetus is. What else can we say about Gullinbursti? Well, it is said that it can run through air and water better than any horse. Just like the baby can survive in the liquid-filled womb with no air, only liquid in there, but it also makes the transition instantly once it is born to be able to breathe air. It's really amazing when you think about it. We go from, you know, babies, little creatures living on you know, water in the mother's womb basically, and then we're able to breathe air right as soon as we're born. So also, it writes about Gullinbursti how a trait that it was never too dark, or there was never a lack of light, no matter what murky, gloomy regions that it was in. Sounds like a certain female body part, doesn't it? Anyway, what else do we say about Gullinbursti? Well, he's Freyrs pig, the god of fertility. Now this part can be a bit confusing, and I don't quite have the answer. Maybe you guys have some ideas that you can let us all know. So Freyr is a very complex deity, as are all the main central gods in the myths, and they for sure symbolize a few different things, but Freyr is commonly believed to represent the fertility of man, or mankind. Not just men, but humankind. It's, you know, the masculine forces of creation in nature, and Freya is the female forces of creation. So some people even theorize that Freyr just represents the sperm. You know, it just represents the skeet, it represents the jizz. I don't quite agree. I think it's more complex than that. It is suggested by some others that Freyr represents the seed, which makes a lot more sense, really. Not just sperm, but, you know, seeds. But you can admit in this case that Freyr being symbolic of the sperm does make sense. Freyr being the sperm carrying the DNA and fertility and how it forms in the fetus, and then when it combines with Freya, the egg, and the female forces of fertility and creation, and this seed and this DNA forms into Gullinbursti, which he rides, and that's where the DNA is carried, just like Gullinbursti carries Freyr. I don't know, I think it's a little bit more complicated than that, but let me know what you guys think. Freya as the sperm maybe makes sense on one level, but I think it's a lot more broad than that. For humans and animals, Freyr could represent the sperm, yeah, but for other living things it's something else, seeds. And this makes really good sense when we go over the specific story of Freyr riding Gullinbursti to Baldr's funeral. So Baldr is dying, and his funeral is a myth about the winter coming. Baldr represents the summer, not just like the sunlight. It's not like the sunlight is dying, but Baldr represents summertime and life and all plants and living things. So when Baldr dies, everything in nature dies. That's why when summer dies, everything else in nature dies. That's why he was such a beloved and important god. Baldr's funeral describes a series of rituals that were done in order to bring the summer back to life. Watch my videos about Baldr and all of the deities around his funeral. I did a lot of them on that. Freyr, riding on Gullinbursti, in this case, to Baldr's funeral, could symbolize another one of these rituals. It's just a myth about carrying the seeds to be planted at the start of the winter. We do know that there would be sacrifices to Freyr for the sake of a good harvest right around this time in a lot of places in Scandinavia. So crops, you know, that we have today with all the chemicals and technology and all that crap can be, you know, it can be planted pretty late in the spring, and they can grow food for the harvest in the very same year. However, in ancient times, they did not have this technology. Seeds had to spend some time germinating, and anyone who is into gardening knows this, but a seed doesn't just sprout out as soon as you plant it. It has to spend weeks or even months in a cool, dark, moist place. And this is why Seeds were planted usually in the start of the winter in very ancient times. So people carry the seed and plant it into the ground right at the time when the winter comes, just like Freyr rides Gullinbursti to Baldur's funeral at this exact time. So we humans carry the seed to be planted and can be reborn again. Baldur comes back to life, and everything comes back to life because they were planted. I don't know, it all makes pretty good sense to me, but let me know what you guys think, and if you have any better theories, I would love to hear, but that's it for this video. Vi ses nästa gång.